As you've heard, my name is Winnie, and I come from an organization called HAART, which means Awareness Against Human Trafficking. It is a grassroots organization which is working in Kenya, mainly Nairobi and its suburbs. It has been a registered non-profit organization in the Republic of Kenya since 2010. Our projects use the UN methodology, which categorizes counter-trafficking activities as follows: prevention, protection of victims, prosecution of traffickers, and policy cooperation. In this paper, I'm going to talk about what HAART does, the different forms of human trafficking that ours as HAART we encounter, and also dealing with victims of human trafficking. So mainly our first activity, we always deal with prevention. And in this program, we entail capacity building at the grassroots level, where we train volunteers on the dangers of human trafficking. You can hear me? Where we train volunteers on the dangers of human trafficking, and then they are sent out to the local communities and train them as well. They're able to tackle issues of human trafficking, the nature of it, and also train people on how to identify trafficked people, and those who are trafficked, they refer them to our organization. In line with the UN policy, which declares that awareness creation is the best way possible to curb human trafficking, HAART has actually, that's the main business of HAART, to always create awareness. And then through our workshops, we're able to meet victims of trafficking, who then we are able to assist. And in the awareness program, we're able to start a program for the youths, because mainly in our country, youths are done so trafficked. So we thought that training youths and sending them out to train other youths would work out well, because supply and demand. We find that youths are the best people who watch pornography. The same people are being prostitutes in the streets and all. And if they're aware that by them doing that, they're fueling trafficking, I think that's the best way to stop the demand. So we've been able to do a couple of activities with the youth programs. We have art, we use drama, radio dramas, we use dance, we try and do cleanups in the communities, in the villages, in the streets of Nairobi. And we're also able to talk to students in schools, in churches, anywhere we can find youths. That's where the youths normally are sent. That's the program which is called Young at Heart, as you can see. So we call them Young at Heart because they work at heart and they're the young ones. And I was part of that program, and we had a photography activity which took place at some point. This is one of the photos. This was a program which was meant to empower youths, because we believe at times creating awareness and not trying to solve the problems, because most of the time people are trafficked because of poverty. And if you can't empower them economically, at times it's like not doing much. So we tried to have this program for the youths, and what it did was to give them something which they can do to earn them something, earn them a living, and that makes them less vulnerable to trafficking. We also do protection, which is assisting victims. And in this program, mainly our victims are trafficked to the Arab countries. That's Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, and their women. Normally, what happens, we hear stories of them. They've gone there, they signed a contract in Kenya. They sign a contract that you're told you're going to work for 2 years. You're paid like 40,000 Kenyan shillings. And when you get there at the embassy, not the embassy, at the airport of the other country, you're given a different contract to sign. It's Arabic. You can't read the language, and you have to sign it because you can't get back to your own country. So such cases are so similar. You get there, and then the conditions, first you're told you're going to be a hotelier. You get there, you're a domestic help. Different stories from so many women. Right now we have like 150 victims we've rescued from Saudi Arabia. Though that's mainly it, but in Kenya it's internal and external. Most of what is aired in our national TVs, it's external, but 3/4 of it in Kenya is internal trafficking. The reason why it's not recorded is because it's so hidden, and somewhat it has become normal. We think that it's normal to have a domestic help with 12 years, with 13 years. To have beggars in the streets, we feel that it's okay. That is a child with like 5 years, 6 years. So, because it's normal to us, it's like it's not a crime. And even reporting to the police, at times they tell you, what is that? What are you talking about? So we lack cooperation from our enforcers. And that has brought a problem mainly to the victims, because they come back to the country, they try to report their cases to the police, and then they are told to go and bring the traffickers to the police station, which is something really hard and difficult to do for them. So something else that us as HAART we do is also policy cooperation, and we've actually been able to have 3 traffickers at least prosecuted and jailed, though in different terms. We have the bill, the act was passed in 2010, but implementation is still not there. They are jailed on different terms, either child abuse, something a different term than human trafficking, which gives them a less jail term, because in our country you're meant to be jailed for 30 years if you're a trafficker, but none has been done so far for someone to be jailed because of human trafficking. And we also try and work on we've also tried to work on different forms of exploitation that we've been able to tackle as an organization. In our country, we have experienced all of them, the 3: sexual exploitation, forced labor, and organ removal. Sexual exploitation mainly is what is aired in our TVs also, as the guy from America, I'm sorry, I can't see your name from here, is shared. Mainly they talk about sexual exploitation, but even for us, forced labor is not that much talked about, but it's what we experience more. We have most of our victims who experience sexual exploitation, they also go through forced labor. It's like happens at the same time. You're working in a home somewhere, and then the husband, the sons, all those, most of the time it's men, they are always exploiting you sexually. It's not, most of the time they try and just say it was forced labor, not sexual exploitation, or the other. They don't match the two, but that is what you're experiencing from the victims I've been able to rescue so far. Maybe if I could read for you a story, which actually, for me to start first at HAART, I was just doing awareness creation, and for me it was easy. It was just talking about stories, sharing statistics with people and all, till I met one of the victims, and then this changed my whole life. Actually, I viewed trafficking in a different term. The story was shared to me by a lady called Sister Mary, who is the coordinator of the victims program. And this is a lady who was approached by a lifelong friend, and she told her that she could get a job at the coast, that is Mombasa. And when she got there, she was taken into a house, which was somewhat secure for a brothel. She stayed there for 8 months. And for her first to get there, she was afraid because she found many other ladies, but then she was told by the employer or the owner of the home that she had to comply with the request of her customers. For her, she didn't know she was going to work or to be in a brothel. So for her to be in that situation was a bit shocking, and given it was a friend who took her there, she didn't know really what to do. She was introduced into drugs so that she could be a bit more comfortable while doing her job. And for her to come out of there, she had to sneak away. There was a fence, barbed wire. She tried to open it up. She left while bleeding, but then she managed to get to the bus stop, and she talked to the driver and explained her story, and a bus fare was paid back to Nairobi. She went back to her family, but one thing that she left with was HIV. And up to date, there's like 5 years down the line, her family doesn't know what happened to her when she was in Mombasa. She's unable to share her story, and she has vowed never to inform them of her HIV status. Right now, she's doing well through counseling. She's running a small business. But then her life, even by looking at her, she's still healing. She has a long process to go. She has a long journey. It's for her, she's Muslim, and she was trafficked and exploited by another Muslim. So for her, it's difficult to understand how a person from the same religion is going to exploit you. In my work in the previous 2 years, for me, the first victim that I was able to assist, he was a young boy. Right now, he's 17 years. For him, he was trafficked and taken from Nairobi to a village in Kenya called Meru. That time he was taken, he was lost. in Nairobi. Then he approached an adult to ask for directions, who promised to take him home, but then he was taken to a village in Meru. At that time, he was 11 years, and there he stayed for 2 years. He was forced to work in a farm and sodomized for 2 years. Lucky for him, a neighbor of the trafficker helped him. He was paid for the transport. He got back to Nairobi, still got lost. He didn't know where his home was. He started begging in the street, was a street boy. And then one time when he was begging, one of the ladies, it happened that he was begging his own mom. The mom recognized him. He called out his name and he responded. And it was actually aired in the television, how he got back and all. But then what the family didn't know was the sodomy part. So he just came back home and the guys didn't know what happened to him. Till I was in a workshop just in their local community talking to people about human trafficking. And then the participants shared the story of that boy and was brought forth, and trying to talk to him was a bit scared. That was like 4 years down the line. And then he was able to open up to us because I was the counselor, and he shared that he was sodomized. We took him to hospital. He's also HIV positive, and he's 17 years. So his youth, his life, really, as much as he's survived, he's gone through all that, he's back home. I don't think he'll ever get what he lost during all those years and all those months. For us, in Kenya, it's said that forced labor is the biggest, more than even the sexual exploitation. We have children who are put into the streets. They're forced to beg. Others are put in the sex tourism. Others into domestic servitude, which is like normal to have, which I'm talking about having house helps who are 12 years, even some are 5 years, 6 years, taking care of your own family, taking care of your own children who are going to school, and that child is denied that chance of education. They have to take care of your own children, and that's true. In Kenya, it's normal. It's a crime. And we have some of the children put into agriculture farms, like flower plantations, into fishing, cattle herding, which is normal when it comes to the northern Kenya. And how do these traffickers do this? They gain poor families' trust through familial or tribal or religious ties. They falsely offer to raise and educate children in towns or promise to obtain lucrative employment for young women. Some of the women also promised marriages at the coast. You get married off to a white man, you're taken to their own country. For that, that is a good thing. It's like the in thing for you to get married to a white person. You believe you're going to get rich and all. So for them to get married to any white man, whoever, whichever the circumstances and everything, they don't really care. So you get married, and most of the time they come back with strange stories. I was married off, and then my husband made me sleep with dogs. Others, they are married and then their husbands make them prostitutes. That's how they earn their living, by sleeping with other men in their homes. So that's some of the stories that you'll be able to get from the victims we've been able to rescue. And we also have the current trend, we know of Somali. We have the Al-Shabaab and all. Some of the youths in Kenya are being recruited and being taken to the country to fight. They join the Al-Shabaab, and that's what they're doing currently. They're promised a lot of money, like I'll say $5,000 a month, and it's very easy for them to accept that, because our unemployment rate in Kenya, it's now like at 48%. That's the youth are nearly, that's the rate, 48% are not employed. And I remember Louisa saying that she has not had experiences of people being trafficked internationally. For us, we have victims who've been trafficked to countries like Denmark. They come back, and yeah, I'll agree that in Europe countries, in the European countries, it's more on sexual exploitation. Like we have a victim who was trafficked by her own aunt. She was taken there for 6 years, and she was purely put in prostitution. She's back in the country, in Kenya, but reintegration has been quite difficult because of her own security. She can't start her own business because the aunt is following her all around. And so right now you have to support her all through. And she also, I don't know why, but it's like most of our victims are, all of them come back HIV positive, having so many diseases. They have so many effects going on. And also I've been able to come across organ removal cases. We have boys who Most of the time, their private pets are taken, the tanks in mortuaries. You find someone died, but then people go to the mortuaries and just harvest their private parts. Most of them, it's for witchcraft, which is something which is happening. And we have toddler theft. Someone gives birth in a hospital. You are told your child has passed away, but then they are bought by other people in hospitals. We have a couple of push factors which are pushing our people to these situations. And many young men and women come from backgrounds of little or no education. A lack of school fees is a major barrier for many parents, and therefore many children grow up without guidance and are easily lured by traffickers. You'll usually find the most vulnerable people in the slums of the big cities, and especially in Nairobi, as well as the rural areas. When I was listening to their stories, it seems that poverty and desperation dominated their narratives, lives such that they were easy prey for the traffickers and recruiters. Opportunities knock, and they could not resist the offer. And then the other issue is an high unemployment rate, which is pushing most of the youths just to take such opportunities. And also our culture, which it's like the boy child should get education first, and then you might think of the girl child. So because of that, the girl child really, for them, anything that comes across, they feel that they're more privileged to take it, because...
¿Estamos? ¿Terminaste ahí? Muchísimas gracias, Winnie. Muchas gracias.